it's with great pride that I welcome my very dear friend, the First Minister, our party leader, John Swinney.
Friends, what a conference we have had. What a wonderful welcome we've received here in Aberdeen. And what a great result last night, albeit slightly nerve-wracking. Winning certainly suits Scotland, and conference winning for Scotland is what this party is all about. I want to talk about where we're going as a country. Right now, the choice is a simple and a stark one. We must not resign ourselves to a future defined by Brexit or by sky-high bills and delegates. We are certainly not going to allow Keir Starmer or any Westminster politician to define us by Brit cards. We must define our own future, a future where we devote all of our resources to transforming the lives of people in Scotland, where our immense energy wealth puts money into people's pockets, not into the coffers of Westminster's Treasury or the offshore bank accounts of billionaires. A future where the poverty that has blighted lives for far too long is not swept under the carpet, but instead is swept out of Scotland, where our National Health Service is freed once and for all from the threat of creeping Westminster privatisation. Conference independence offers Scotland a fresh start. This is a moment of decision. We all face a choice: decline, decay and Westminster and despair with Westminster Government, or hope, optimism and ambition with Scottish self-government. This is the moment for us to realise the true potential we have as a nation. Now is the time for Scotland to become independent. Delegates, on Saturday we showed how serious we are about achieving that goal by agreeing our strategy to get us there. We did so through reasoned, respectful and spirited discussion. In a world where democracy is under threat, I think it's safe to say that democracy is alive and well and thriving in the Scottish National Party. And it is democracy that will now take us forward. Our task is to win a majority of seats in the Scottish Parliament. We are going to break the logjam in Scottish politics. Delegates, I know that things are not easy for a lot of people right now. Times are tough. We've had the financial crash, austerity, Brexit, the cost of living crisis. And through all those tough times, through all the storms of recent history, it's become crystal clear: Westminster does not work for Scotland. And I'll tell you what does work for Scotland. Self-government works for Scotland, and SNP government works for Scotland. We are a government that fights for Scotland every single day. That's what I offer. That's what the SNP offer at the election. not a branch office beholden to London, but a government wholly owned by and wholly serving the people of Scotland. People need a government that will back them 100%. A few months ago, hundreds of workers at Alexander Dennis faced redundancy. An iconic bus manufacturer was planning to close its doors in Scotland. Labour stood back, offering nothing but press releases, platitudes and posturing, just like at Grangemouth. But your SNP government got to work. We rolled up our sleeves and we brought the company, the trade unions and the workforce together, and we're backing them with public investment. That is the power of self-government. Scotland at its best, and hundreds of high-quality jobs saved for the people of Scotland. I say it again because it's a winning formula. Self-government works and SNP government works. Just look at what we are achieving. Free childcare provision more than doubled. Council tax bills lowest in the UK. Water bills lowest in the UK. Income tax, most paying less, the highest earners paying more. Prescriptions free. University tuition free. Bus travel free for under 22s. Peak fares on our trains gone and gone for good. Waiting times down. GP numbers up. Record numbers of hip and knee operations on our streets, crime down, in our schools, literacy and numeracy up, record numbers heading to college or university and conference, child poverty in Scotland at its lowest level in 3 decades. That is the SNP record. That is self-government making lives better in Scotland. But what about Westminster? They once said things could only get better. But on day one, Keir Starmer changed his tune. He now says things are only going to get worse. That's not what people voted for. But delegates, he's got form. Keir Starmer promised to be a left-wing Labour leader, and then he became a right-wing Prime Minister. He stole Jeremy Corbyn's clothes, and now he's dressing up as Nigel Farage. He hasn't even tried to implement the progressive policies that people backed him for. This vacuous Labour government is a symptom of a wider problem, a Westminster system that is broken and broken beyond repair. Labour and Tories are locked in a race to the right, a race that will only be won by Nigel Farage. Fear of Farage is driving Westminster to more and more extreme views. Brexit was bad enough. Now we face climate change denial. We face talk of mass deportations, even the ripping up of human rights laws. Delegates, let me be clear. Scotland's rights are not Westminster's to give away. Ideas that once seemed unthinkable are now common currency. That is Westminster's obsession. Not your rising shopping bills, not your kids' future, not your parents' care. Westminster has never been more out of touch with people's everyday concerns. It has never been clearer for Westminster Scotland is only ever an afterthought. As well as being morally wrong, Westminster's race to the right is also deeply damaging to our society. The number of nurses the National Health Service was able to recruit from overseas fell by 80% last year. 80%. And in July, Westminster shut down the visa route for social care workers. They even withdrew job offers that had already been promised. As a result, thousands of care workers here in the UK, entirely legally, have been left high and dry, unable to work, while care homes are crying out for staff. In what world does that make any sense whatsoever? Well, delegates, I've got a solution. I can announce today that the Scottish Government is stepping in. We will sponsor these skilled staff so they can work, pay tax and help keep Scotland's care homes running. Hundreds of dedicated workers able to start work immediately. Scotland's older people must not pay the price for Westminster's prejudice. Conference, Westminster isn't working for Scotland. Self-government works for Scotland, and an SNP government works for Scotland too. Scotland is a welcoming nation, and we've always been an outward-looking nation. In all my years in politics, I can think of few who've embodied this ability to look outwards, more than the late and much-missed George Reid. George, of course, played an absolutely pivotal role in both the early breakthrough of the SNP and in the early years of our national parliament. But beyond our shores, he was widely known and respected for his humanitarian work. In tense situations, he brought people together. He gave hope to those who had none. I learned so much from George. We all did. And delegates, let's resolve today to carry on George's legacy, to bring empathy and compassion to everything we do, and to always, always fight for a better Scotland and a better world. In today's world, it feels like the values that George espoused are more important than ever. That means standing up to brutal dictators like Vladimir Putin, and Conference, standing shoulder to shoulder with the people of Ukraine. And it means that even in the most desperate of wars, we must hold on to the hope that an end to the killing is possible, hope that things can be better. And today has seen welcome signs that hope is beginning to bear fruit. For the first time since the terrible events of October the 7th, the people of Palestine and Israel have hope for peace. The pictures of hostages being released, of families being reunited, of refugees returning to their homes are deeply moving, deeply humbling. They remind us that even in the darkest of days, hope can prevail. But we must also remember how that is achieved. For hope to prevail, people have to step up, and they do. The campaigners, the aid workers, the political leaders, and the brave, brave journalists risking their lives to tell the world of the genocide in Gaza. They have stepped up. Now, we must all step up to secure the peace, to turn hope into reality for Israel and Palestine, for the displaced, the distraught and the destitute. Aid must flow. Every life is sacred and of equal value. Every family, whether Palestinian or Israeli, deserves to live in peace and dignity. A two-state solution must be delivered. Peace must prevail. Peace is a long-term project, and it sometimes requires far-sighted investment. International development is very often the first line of defence, the defence against conflict, population displacement and humanitarian catastrophe. It is not a luxury. But at Westminster, Labour have slashed overseas aid. And unbelievably, the Labour Prime Minister used his conference speech to boast about the fact. We've got a very different view of the world. Tomorrow, I travel to Zambia and Malawi to mark the 20th anniversary of Scotland's international aid programme, and I am very proud to be doing so. In recent years, we've increased funding and expanded the scope of Scotland's international development efforts. Our funding has helped to build operating rooms for children's hospitals, support climate initiatives, and ensure children, in particular girls, can attend school. With full self-government, we could, of course, do so much more. The UK was once so proud of its international development programme, but now they all seem to be ashamed of it. That in itself is shameful. Labour is delivering less than half of the UN target for international development, slashing money for those most in need. But conference, with Westminster, of course, there's always billions for weapons of mass destruction. Delegates, let's be absolutely clear. An independent Scotland would proudly do her duty as a global citizen, and we will do it without the obscenity of nuclear weapons on the River Clyde. Conference. In tough and uncertain times, it is more important than ever to stand by your values. That's why the values of our leaders matter. In May, I will ask the people of this country to elect me as the First Minister of Scotland for the next 5 years. Our people are entitled to know what has made me who I am today and what that means for how I will take Scotland forward. A few months ago, the national newspaper asked me the 10 things that had shaped my life. I talked about the safe and secure start to my life given to me by my loving parents. I talked of following the exciting debates in the 1970s about establishing a Scottish Assembly, and from the disappointment of that moment, joining the Scottish National Party to change Scotland for the better. I even talked about my favourite band, The Jam, the seminal music for me from the 1980s, which I still listen to when I'm running these days. For me, their most iconic song has always been Down in the Tube Station at Midnight. That's an anthem that rails against the evils of fascism, against which I will always, always stand firm. I talked of meeting my wife Elizabeth, without whom I can do nothing of what I do today. I talked of my faith, of doing unto others only what I would have done to me. I talked of Scotland's islands, where I find peace in my life, walking the golden sands of the beaches of Tiree, of Harris, of my granny's home in Orkney, surrounded by the turquoise waters, the precious inheritance we have in Scotland that we must cherish. I talked about becoming a dad, and this year, for the first time, a granddad, and why it makes me so determined to do the best I can for the country that comes after me, the country that our children and our grandchildren will inherit. That's why becoming First Minister is such a privilege. It is the ultimate opportunity to serve the people of this country. That, my friends, is who I am. A son of our capital city, honoured to have represented one of the most beautiful parts of rural Scotland for almost 3 decades. A man shaped by all of Scotland. That is who the Scottish National Party will ask the people of our country to vote for as First Minister. It is the honour of my life to be First Minister. But let me in you into a secret. I'm just getting started. When I lead the SNP into the election next year, I will be seeking my own mandate from the people of Scotland, a mandate to fundamentally transform our country for the long term. I will continue to be a leader who listens in order to lead. There is no more important issue to all of us than our National Health Service. We all use it. I use it. My family uses it. And we will be forever grateful for what the NHS does for us. Yes, there are challenges, but we've all heard directly from people who praise our NHS staff and are positive about their treatment in the National Health Service. More and more people are being seen. Waiting lists are falling. More appointments are taking place. There are more operations and more GPs. But one key issue is the ATM rush for appointments. We want to make it easier for people to see a GP where and when it works for them. That's why I can announce today that the SNP government will open a nationwide network of walk-in GP services based in your community, on your local high street, near your child's school or close to your workplace. They will break from the status quo. They will add to the care we already value, staffed by GPs and nurses, open from 12 noon to 8 p.m, and you won't need to call up for an appointment. That means more people can go after work when it fits with their lives. And to make that even easier, they'll be open 7 days a week. This is just the start. We will expand this network, but it will begin with 15 sites across Scotland. They will deliver over 1 million additional GP and nurse appointments, and the first will be up and running within the year. That is personalised care on your doorstep. That is self-government working. That's the SNP government working for Scotland. The Scottish National Party is thinking and acting in these new radical ways to respond to people's key concerns. It's why we brought in the Scottish National Investment Bank, the baby box, the Scottish Child Payment. It's why we used hard-won powers to get rid of the two-child cap, at the same time as Labour was disciplining its MPs for daring to agree. And believe me, conference, we won't stop there. This party is and always has been, at its core, Scotland's true radicals. But while we're championing the new, Westminster insists on sticking to the old ways of doing things. There is a Westminster consensus that so often works against Scotland. It's why, in a land of plenty, life is still unaffordable for too many Scots. Because on Westminster's watch, the basic essentials of life, energy, food and more are becoming more and more expensive. In many ways, the deep-seated problems facing the UK right now are a culmination of decades of failed Thatcherite economics. An entire system accepted by the Westminster parties of being intensely relaxed about some people becoming filthy rich while everyone else struggles to get by. It was in part Scottish revulsion at the policies of Margaret Thatcher that catapulted Scotland towards the creation of a Scottish Parliament and the rebirth of self-government. We became, in Westminster language, a devolved nation. Today, I believe it will be revulsion at Westminster's race to the right that will change Scotland's status again from a so-called devolved nation to what we can be, a modern, outward-looking, inclusive, compassionate country, not a devolved nation, but the world's newest independent nation. That is the fresh start Scotland needs. Decisions about Scotland should be taken by the people of Scotland. No one else will do a better job of caring for this beautiful country than the people who live here. And I mean all the people who live here. Wherever you are from, whatever your faith, whatever the colour of your skin, let me make this clear. We are all citizens. We all have a part to play and a contribution to make. And Conference, yes, I am proud to say that refugees are welcome here. The race to the right at Westminster is one reason why independence is so urgent and necessary. Living standards in the UK have flatlined, and the promised improvements from electing a Labour government at Westminster have simply not happened. Just look at our energy bills. We were all promised a cut of £300, but what has Keir Starmer's government delivered? An increase of almost £200. Sky-high energy bills in one of the most energy-rich countries in the world. For Scotland, Great British Energy is fast proving to be the Great British rip-off. Delegates, it's time for a new approach. This week, the Scottish Government published a detailed prospectus for independence, how our economy could work, our migration system, our route back to the EU, our place in the world, and how we would build a new nation. The work has been done, but Conference, more than that, we've set out the potential for Scotland to be a very different kind of country. There is so much to be hopeful about as a new nation state. For countries of Scotland's size, the golden combination is the policy power of independence together with membership of the European Union. Scotland is fortunate. Our golden combination can be independence, Europe, and our vast, low-cost, renewable energy. Even without our advantages, independent countries, just like Scotland, Denmark, Ireland, Finland, Austria and others, are all wealthier than the UK, fairer than the UK, all have lower rates of poverty, all have higher rates of investment. Conference, we often pose the question, If all these countries can be so successful, why not Scotland? But for me, it's time to be much, much more assertive. It's time to stop asking the question. It's time to proclaim with confidence, if all those countries can be wealthier and fairer than the UK, then so can Scotland. There are some who say that the 21st century is heralding a return to an era of big powers. It is true that the biggest states often attract most of the attention. But look past the headlines and look at what's really going on. Because the reality is this. In the 21st century, it is the European states the size of Scotland that are enjoying the biggest successes. It is they who have the flexibility to target their resources and adapt. It is they who are upholding the rules-based system and the commitment to human rights, backed by the security of the EU, international cooperation and mutual respect. In this era of enormous global change, where the world has become so much smaller and technology advancing at such a rate, it is clear that cooperation to tackle the great challenges of the day is needed more than ever. And that, my friends, is the simple and stark choice facing Scotland. We choose not Westminster government, we choose self-government. We choose not isolationism, we choose internationalism. Never an island of strangers, always a continent of friends. Conference, our dear friend and my late colleague Christina McKelvey, the beloved partner of my Deputy Leader Keith Brown, left an extraordinary legacy. She championed the rights of the marginalised. She gave voice to the voiceless. But her passion stretched way beyond those of politics and the cause of Scottish independence. Christina wrote poetry. At her funeral, words she wrote so beautifully and so movingly were read out. Don't take the sunrise each morning for granted. Turn your face to her. Soak in her power. To each day we step out, feet planted, with our strength aglow, we empower. Friends, Christina was telling us to make the most of each and every day. That sentiment matters now more than ever, because the country that Christina longed to see, and which she campaigned so hard to bring about, is in all of our hands. But that country has to be won. It needs to be won each and every day by the people in this hall, by those in the wider party and movement, and above all, by the people of Scotland. Because we are building a country for all of Scotland, a nation defined by fairness, where the sense of possibility runs deep through all of our cities, towns, villages and through every community. A country in which the saltire will flutter proudly but gently, as a symbol of an inclusive, welcoming, compassionate nation. We know there are those who seek a very different future for Scotland. So each and every day we need to be stronger. Each and every day we need to be more committed, more driven by our love for one another and for Scotland, for the better nation we know is within our grasp. Each and every day, keep that vision in your mind and, above all, in your hearts. And together, let's win Scotland's independence. Thank you very much.